Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Rejected by the stars, humanity's secret empire rose from the shadows. The stars were never kind to humanity. When the United Galactic Federation discovered Earth, they deemed humanity unfit for integration, too aggressive, too unpredictable, too emotional. They placed sanctions forbidding trade, colonization, or technological aid. The verdict was clear. Humanity was to remain stranded on its dying homeworld, a species doomed to rot in the shadow of greater civilizations. But the Federation underestimated one thing: humanity's refusal to die quietly. Earth was suffocating. Resources dwindled and wars over scraps intensified, and the Federation stood back watching like indifferent gods. They had the power to help, but they had already decided humanity was not worth saving. But in the darkest corners of the world, in underground bunkers and hidden laboratories, a different future was being written. Brilliant minds, scientists, engineers, hackers, and warlords came together driven by one purpose: survival. They scavenged technology from black market dealers, reverse-engineered alien systems, and pushed their own sciences beyond limits. The Federation believed Earth was locked in isolation. They were wrong. In the silence of space, forgotten stations and derelict ships became humanity's first strongholds. Smugglers, mercenaries, and outcasts joined their ranks, bound not by nationality but by purpose. They became the Ghost Fleet, a hidden armada that operated in the darkness between the stars. Their weapons were outdated compared to Federation standards, and their ships were cobbled together from stolen scraps. But they were human, and that meant they adapted, they endured, and most importantly, they struck where it hurt the most. For years, the Federation never knew who was raiding their supply lines, disrupting their communications, and stealing classified technology. By the time they realized it was too late, humanity was no longer confined to Earth. They had built an empire in the shadows. On the bridge of the Iron Revenant, Admiral Darius Kyne stood with his hands behind his back, staring at the vastness of space. His fleet, a ghost armada of human warships, drifted like silent predators in the dark, waiting for the signal to strike. Their target was Vorton 5, a resource world vital to the Federation's economy. If humanity wanted to send a message, this was the place. A soft chime rang through the bridge. "Lieutenant Reyes," the Admiral said, his voice calm but firm, "Federation patrols are moving into the sector just as predicted." Kane allowed himself a small smile. "Good," he said. "Then it's time they learned why rejecting humanity was their greatest mistake." The Iron Revenant hung in the void, its darkened hull absorbing the distant glow of Vorton 5's twin suns. Around it, the Ghost Fleet remained hidden, engines cold, weapons primed, waiting for the moment to strike. Admiral Darius Kyne watched the enemy fleet move into position. Federation patrols were predictable, efficient, but complacent. They relied on their superior technology and numbers, believing no one could challenge them. They had never fought humans who had nothing left to lose. "Status?" Kane asked. Lieutenant Reyes checked the tactical display. 3 heavy cruisers, 6 frigates, and 2 carrier escorts. Their shields are down, standard peacetime formation. They don't suspect a thing. A dark chuckle rumbled from Kane's throat. "They will soon." With a nod, he gave the order. A single burst signal pulsed through the void, a silent whisper in the dark, and the shadows came alive. From the darkness, human warships surged forward. Cloaked fighters, their engines running cold until the last second, ignited in blue streaks of fire as they screamed toward the unsuspecting fleet. Silent torpedoes, designed to evade standard sensor detection, struck first, smashing into the Federation cruisers before their shields could power up. Explosions erupted across the enemy formation, and chaos followed. Unknown hostiles engaged. "Shields up!" The Federation officers barely had time to react before the Ghost Fleet tore into them. Kane's fleet didn't fight like the Federation. There were no drawn-out engagements, no prolonged tactical standoffs. Humanity had learned the art of war the hard way, through desperation, through survival. The Iron Revenant fired its rail cannons, sending hyperdense slugs through the first frigate's hull. The ship crumpled, its reactor going critical in a silent, fiery explosion. Federation ships scrambled to return fire, but the Ghost Fleet was already among them, moving with terrifying precision. Stealth corvettes weaved between capital ships, planting boarding charges. Human commandos, soldiers forged in the hell of Earth's wars, breached enemy vessels, cutting down Federation officers before they could even draw their sidearms. On the bridge of a Federation cruiser, Admiral Thesic of the Federation's 3rd Patrol Fleet watched in horror. This can't be possible," he muttered. A lieutenant turned to him, her face pale. "Sir, we're being overrun. We don't even know who they are." He clenched his fists. He knew there was only one species with this level of reckless defiance. "Humans," he spat. On the Iron Revenant, Kane watched as the Federation fleet crumbled. Ships burned, enemy crews surrendered, and Vorton 5's orbital defenses fell into silence. Reyes turned to him. "Orders, sir." Kane took a slow breath. "Send a message," he said. The transmission echoed across the system, hijacking every Federation frequency. "You cast us out. You abandoned us. You thought humanity was finished. You were wrong. We are the Ghost Fleet. We are the darkness between the stars, and we have returned." Far across the galaxy, in the heart of the Federation's capital, the message played before the High Council. For the first time in centuries, fear crept into their eyes. Humanity was no longer beneath their notice. Humanity was at war. The Ghost Fleet had struck its first blow, and the Federation reeled from the shock. Vorton 5, a planet once considered untouchable, now lay in human hands. The station defenses had fallen, its orbital shipyards had been seized, and Federation survivors were either dead or prisoners. But Kane knew this was only the beginning. The Federation was arrogant, but it wasn't weak. It had fleets that spanned the stars, worlds covered in fortress cities, and an army drawn from 1,000 species. Now that humanity had shown its hand, the full weight of the galaxy would come crashing down upon them, which was exactly what Kane wanted. In the command center of the Iron Revenant, Lieutenant Reyes analyzed intercepted Federation transmissions. "The enemy is panicking. Reports of the attack spread like wildfire, and the High Council has already ordered a response. They're mobilizing the 6th Armada," Reyes said. "At least 60 warships, including dreadnoughts." A murmur ran through the command crew. The Federation didn't send dreadnoughts for minor skirmishes. This was an extermination order. Kane smirked. "Perfect." Commander Locketch, Kane's chief strategist, stepped forward. "Sir, we can't take on an entire armada head-on. Even with Vorton 5's resources, we're still outgunned." Kane leaned forward, his eyes glinting with something dangerous. "We don't need to win a battle," he said. "We need to win a war." The Ghost Fleet didn't fight conventionally. They were insurgents, saboteurs, ghosts in the void. If the Federation thought this would be a simple fleet engagement, they were walking into a trap. Kane turned to Reyes. "Send out the signal. It's time to activate the sleeper cells." Across Federation space, humanity had not been idle. The Federation believed they had isolated Earth, but humans had been slipping through the cracks for decades, posing as traders, mercenaries, engineers. They had wormed their way into shipyards, intelligence bureaus, and military outposts. They had listened, learned, and waited. And now the waiting was over. On the industrial world of Belthar 9, a human engineer working on a Federation battleship inserted a simple command into the ship's AI. When the 6th Armada jumped to warp, its supply lines would accidentally be sent to the wrong coordinates, stranding half its fleet in deep space. On the fortress planet Xiphos Prime, a human scientist in a classified weapons lab triggered a chain reaction in the Federation's prototype plasma cannons. The resulting explosion destroyed 3 dreadnoughts before they could even leave dock. On the Federation's capital world of Alea, a single encrypted message was sent from a human diplomat's datapad. Within hours, power outages swept through the planetary defense grid, leaving the seat of the Federation temporarily vulnerable. One by one, the dominoes fell. The Federation had an armada. Humanity had strategy. Back on Vorton 5, Kane stood on the bridge of his flagship as the Federation fleet arrived. The 6th Armada, reduced but still formidable, emerged from warp in perfect battle formation. Their admiral, a towering reptilian named Varicthal, hailed them. His yellow eyes burned with fury. "Human filth," he growled. "Surrender now and we may spare some of you for labor camps. Resist and we will erase your species from history." Kane chuckled, stepping forward. "You talk big for someone who's about to lose everything." Varicthal sneered. "You are outnumbered. You cannot hope to defeat us." Kane simply smiled. And then behind Varichthal's fleet, the stars exploded. Dozens of hidden human ships lying in wait within Vorton 5's asteroid belt opened fire. Bombardment missiles and kinetic slugs ripped through the enemy formation. The dreadnought's shields flared under the unexpected onslaught, struggling to compensate. At the same time, within the Federation's own fleet, dozens of human sleeper agents activated. Systems shut down, weapons locked up, entire ships turned on their own allies. The Sixth Armada had come to crush humanity. Instead, it was being torn apart from within. Kane watched the chaos unfold and leaned in toward the comms. "I hope you enjoyed your stay in the stars," he said to Varicthal, "because this is humanity's galaxy now." Across the Federation, fear spread like wildfire. The Ghost Fleet wasn't just a rogue group of pirates, it was an uprising. The rejected species had done the impossible. Humanity wasn't just fighting back, humanity was winning. The battle above Vorton 5 raged like a storm, but it was no ordinary battle. It was a slaughter. The Sixth Armada had arrived with confidence, believing they were about to exterminate a nuisance. Instead, they found themselves ensnared in the jaws of a predator they never saw coming. Federation ships fired wildly into the chaos, unsure if the enemy was before them or among them. Human infiltrators had disabled key systems and turned automated defenses against their own ships, sowing such discord that even their admirals had no idea who to trust. On the Iron Revenant, Kane watched the destruction unfold with cold satisfaction. "Status?" he asked. Ray's voice was steady, but there was an edge of triumph beneath it. 30% of our fleet is already lost. Another 15% is either disabled or compromised. Their dreadnoughts are holding, but their command structure is in shambles. Kane nodded. "Good. Make sure no one escapes." The Federation's greatest mistake had been thinking they could contain humanity. That mistake was now costing them their most powerful fleet. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Varichthal's reptilian claws gripped the edges of his command throne, his yellow eyes wide with rage and disbelief. "Where is my firepower?" he snarled. "Where are my reinforcements?" A terrified officer stammered. "Sir, all reinforcements have been compromised. We are receiving conflicting orders from within our own fleet. Some ships have already surrendered, others are engaging each other." "Then retake control," Varichthal bellowed. Before his officers could respond, the ship lurched violently. Emergency klaxons blared as explosions rippled through the lower decks. Varichthal turned his gaze towards the viewport. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Iron Revenant was coming straight for them. The human flagship, bathed in the fire of the dying Federation fleet, moved with terrifying precision. Rail guns ignited, kinetic slugs ripped through Varichthal's escort ships, and its fighter squadron swarmed his defenses like a plague, picking apart whatever was left of his fleet. The humans weren't retreating, they were hunting, and Varichthal was the prey. Kane stood at the helm of his ship, eyes locked onto the enemy flagship. "Bring us in closer," he ordered. Ray's hesitated. "Sir, if we get too close to their main cannons, they won't get the chance to fire." Kane's voice was ice. "I'm ending this now." The Iron Revenant surged forward, dodging through wreckage and fire. Federation ships tried to intercept, but human fighters carved them apart before they could get close. Varichthal's dreadnought turned its cannons, warming up for a desperate last strike. Too late, Kane's fleet unleashed hell. Every railgun, every missile, every plasma bolt was focused on one target. The shields of Varichthal's flagship flared and collapsed, its armored hull breaking apart under the sheer ferocity of human firepower. Explosions erupted across the ship, consuming its decks in roaring infernos. Varichthal barely had time to curse before his command center was consumed in flames. The flagship shattered. The Federation's most powerful admiral was dead. Silence fell over the battlefield. The remaining Federation ships, those that could still fight, hesitated, and then one by one they surrendered. Kane exhaled slowly, watching as the once mighty Sixth Armada crumbled. "Broadcast to all remaining Federation forces," he said. "The battle is over. Humanity stands victorious." Rays nodded and sent the signal. Across the wreckage-strewn void, Federation crews dropped their weapons. Some ejected in escape pods, others simply powered down their ships, knowing they had no hope left. The battle for Vorton 5 was won, but Kane knew the real war was just beginning. In the heart of the Federation's capital, the High Council gathered for an emergency session. The news from Vorton 5 had hit them like a hammer. The Sixth Armada had destroyed Varichthal dead, Humanity was unstoppable. Panic spread through the chamber. "We must retaliate," one counselor cried. "Destroy Earth, wipe them out before they strike again, wipe them out," another scoffed. "They were supposed to be nothing. Now they're winning battles against our best fleets. If we escalate, they will burn us from within." A silence fell over the room as the realization sank in. The Federation had rejected humanity, and now humanity was coming for them, and nothing could stop them. On Vorton 5, Kane stood on the surface, looking up at the stars. The Federation had cast humanity aside, thinking they would be forgotten. Instead, they had created their greatest enemy. "Prepare the fleet," he said quietly. "This was only the beginning. The Ghost Fleet will not stop until the Federation knelt before humanity." The fires of Vorton 5 still burned as humanity's forces secured the remains of the Federation fleet. Wreckage drifted in orbit, the twisted carcasses of warships that once symbolized absolute power. Now they were just ruins, monuments to the arrogance of the species that had cast humanity aside. Kane stood on the command balcony of the Iron Revenant, watching as his officers processed the thousands of Federation prisoners. Some were wounded, some were in shock, and some simply stared at the humans with wide, disbelieving eyes. "Have they said anything?" Kane asked. Reyes shook her head. "Not much, sir. Most of them are too stunned to speak. They can't believe we actually won." Kane smirked. "Good, let them sit with that." The Federation had spent centuries ignoring humanity, treating them like an inconvenient pest, something to be contained, dismissed, forgotten. They had never once considered that humans might fight back, and now they had no choice but to fear them. Deep inside Vorton 5's central command hub, human engineers worked tirelessly. The planetary network was being reconfigured, its defense systems rewritten to recognize human warships as friendlies. The orbital shipyards once reserved for Federation fleets were now under human control. Kane strode through the corridors, his black military coat billowing behind him. "This planet has been a major supply hub for the Federation. Now it will be the foundation of a new empire." Latch, his chief strategist, approached with a data slate. "We've secured their archives, Admiral, complete fleet movements, star charts, supply chains. The Federation thought this information was untouchable." He chuckled. "Turns out they were wrong." Kane took the slate and scrolled through the data. This wasn't just valuable. It was everything: the Federation's weaknesses, its hidden bases, its secret projects. Humanity now has access to it all. Reyes approached. "Sir, we've also decrypted classified communications. The Federation is in full panic mode. They're calling for reinforcements, but there's hesitation." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Hesitation," she nodded. "Some sectors don't want to commit their forces. Word of our victory is spreading, and there are whispers of dissent. Even non-human species that have been under Federation rule are watching us." Kane grinned. "Then let's give them something to believe in." The next move wasn't war, it was propaganda. A transmission was sent across every major Federation channel. A figure in a dark coat stood in front of a burning Federation banner, his eyes cold, his voice like steel. "It is Kane. The Federation cast humanity into the void. They left us to die. They called us unworthy, insignificant. They were wrong. We have taken Vorton 5. We have shattered their armada. We have proven that humanity does not break. To those who still serve the Federation, you have a choice. Stand with the tyrants who cast you aside, or stand with us. The Ghost Fleet is rising, and soon the Federation will fall." The message was clear, and the galaxy listened. In hidden corners of Federation space, oppressed worlds stirred. Slave races who had spent centuries under the Federation's rule saw hope for the first time. Mercenaries, warlords, and exiled soldiers saw an opportunity. The Federation had spent centuries making enemies, and now humanity was offering them a reason to fight. On the Federation's capital world, the High Council's emergency chamber was filled with shouting. "They're inciting rebellion," one counselor screamed. "This is a coordinated effort to bring down our rule," another slammed his fist on the table. "They were nothing. Now they have warships, weapons, and allies. We should have wiped them out when we had the chance." Grand Counselor Varric, an elder of the Sithari race, stood slowly, his pale blue eyes narrowed in contemplation. "Humanity was a mistake," he said softly. "One we should have corrected long ago." Silence fell over the chamber. Varric turned to his war ministers. "Mobilize every fleet. Issue a kill order for Darius Kane and his Ghost Fleet. I don't care how many resources it takes. Humanity does not get to exist." But Kane was already steps ahead. Inside the command center of the Iron Revenant, he studied the star charts. The Federation would regroup and come at them with overwhelming force. Vorton 5 wouldn't hold forever, which meant they had to strike first. Set course for the Havana shipyards, Kane ordered. It's the biggest fleet production facility in this sector. If we take it, we cripple their ability to recover. Locke grinned. Hit them before they can hit us. Classic human strategy, Kane smirked. It's what we do best. The Ghost Fleet moved like a shadow in the night, slipping through the darkness of space. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were forging an empire, and soon the galaxy would belong to them. The Havana shipyards were one of the Federation's most fortified industrial centers, a sprawling orbital complex that produced entire fleets. It had never known war until now. The Iron Revenant emerged from slipspace at the edge of the system, flanked by a growing fleet of warships, some stolen from the Federation, others built in secret by humanity's exiled engineers. A force once thought impossible now drifted in the void, preparing to strike at the heart of the Federation's war machine. Kane stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the massive structure ahead. "Status?" he asked. Reyes studied the tactical readout. The shipyard's defenses are strong, automated turrets, fighter squadrons, a planetary shield generator. They also have a standing fleet of 12 capital ships. She hesitated, but Kane prompted. "Reyes," she exhaled. "They weren't expecting an attack. Most of their crews are in rotation. Only about half their fleet is combat ready. If we move fast, we can gut them before they react." Kane smirked. "Then we move fast." The attack began in silence. The Ghost Fleet infiltration teams had already breached the outer communication relays, severing the shipyard from the Federation's network. When the first human warships opened fire, the defenders were blind. Rail guns roared, kinetic slugs punched through station hulls, igniting fuel lines and sending fireballs into the void. Federation officers scrambled to respond, but their fleet was in disarray. Some ships powered up too slowly, others drifted without orders, and the rest were already being boarded by human strike teams. Inside the shipyard's command center, Admiral Terrace Vellner watched the chaos unfold on her monitors. This can't be happening," she whispered. "Where is our fleet? Where is command?" A trembling officer turned to her. "Ma'am, it's them," he said. Terrace felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. Humanity, the species they had cast out like vermin, the species they had ignored for centuries, had come for revenge. Kane led the assault personally. He and his strike team stormed through the industrial corridors of the shipyard, rifles blazing. Federation engineers and security officers tried to mount a defense, but they were outmatched. The humans moved like ghosts, slipping through the shadows and cutting down resistance with brutal efficiency. Latch took cover behind a console, reloading his rifle. "We've breached the reactor core. Just say the word and we'll send this whole place into the sun." Kane considered it. Destroying the Havana shipyards would deal a crippling blow to the Federation, but then he saw the data scrolling across his wrist console, blueprints, designs for experimental warships, entire stockpiles of weapons that had never been deployed. A slow grin spread across his face. "Forget destroying it," Kane said. "We're taking it." On the bridge of the Iron Revenant, Reyes watched as more Federation ships surrendered. The battle had lasted less than an hour, and already the defenders were breaking. The Ghost Fleet had struck fear into their hearts. "Admiral," she said in calm tones, "we have full control of the shipyards. They're ours." Kane's voice was cold and victorious. "Then let's make some warships." Days later, the galaxy trembled as the news spread. The Ghost Fleet now controlled the largest shipyard in the sector. Human engineers swarmed the station, converting Federation vessels into weapons of war. Factories that once served their enemies now built ships for humanity's empire. Across the galaxy, Federation leaders panicked. The humans weren't just surviving, they were expanding, and soon nothing would stand in their way. The stolen warships of the Havana shipyards formed the backbone of humanity's new fleet. Once loyal to the Federation, they were now refitted with human ingenuity, stronger hulls, deadlier weapons, and an AI system designed to outthink their enemies. Kane stood on the command deck of the Iron Revenant, watching as engineers finalized modifications on a dreadnought that had once been the Federation's pride. Now it bore humanity's black insignia, a symbol of defiance against those who had cast them aside. Locke approached, arms crossed. "Fleet reports are in. We've retrofitted over 24 capital ships and even more support vessels. Our numbers are still small, but with these ships we can punch way above our weight. Rays chimed in, and the Federation knows it. They're mobilizing for a counterattack. The High Council's putting bounties on every single one of us. Kane smirked. Good, let them waste their resources hunting shadows. Rays hesitated. There's something else. We've been receiving transmissions from non-human species. The Federation's iron grip isn't as strong as they want us to believe. Some of their vassal races see us as a way out. They want to talk. Kane's grin faded into a thoughtful expression. The Federation built its empire by subjugating others. What if we built ours by liberating them? The room fell silent as the weight of her words settled in. Humanity had spent centuries surviving in the shadows, fighting just to exist, but now they weren't just fighting for themselves. They had allies, they had a fleet, and they had the power to change the galaxy itself.